Savannah Hayes stared at her CEO in complete disbelief. For several long seconds, she couldn't process what she had just heard. His words seemed to linger in the quiet office like an echo that refused to disappear. Only minutes earlier, she had walked into his office desperate for help. Now it felt as though the floor had vanished beneath her feet. She wanted someone to wake her up, to tell her this was just another nightmare. But it wasn't. Everything had begun on a warm July morning in Miami. The sunrise reflected off the glass towers of Brickell, painting the city in shades of gold. Palm trees swayed gently outside the windows of one of South Florida's fastest-growing investment firms. Savannah had barely placed her purse on her desk when her phone rang. It was her mother. She answered with a smile. "Morning, Mom." Instead of a greeting, she heard sobbing. Real, uncontrollable sobbing. "Savannah," her mother whispered through tears. "It's your sister?" Savannah's heart skipped. "What happened?" "It's Harper." Her mother struggled to breathe. "She collapsed on campus this morning." Savannah couldn't breathe. For a split second, she wondered if she had misheard him. "What did you say?" Adrian Calloway didn't flinch. "You heard me correctly." The office was so quiet that the soft hum of the air conditioner suddenly seemed deafening. "I'll cover every penny of your sister's surgery today." He paused. "But I want you to become my wife." Savannah stared at him. She searched his face for any sign that this was some kind of cruel joke. There was none. "No," she whispered. "No, this can't be real." Adrian folded his hands in front of him. "I know how this sounds." "No, you don't." Her voice trembled. "This is insane. I came here asking for a loan." "I'm not trying to buy you," he answered calmly. "I'm asking you to build a life with me." She let out a bitter laugh. "A life? You've known about my sister for 15 minutes. I've known about you for 4 years." That caught her completely off guard. "What?" "You've worked beside me since you were hired. I've watched the way you treat people. You stay late to help coworkers without asking for credit. You call your parents every lunch break. You donate part of every bonus to children's charities. You've never once tried to use your position to gain favors. You've never lied to me." His voice remained steady. "In my world, those qualities are incredibly rare." Savannah couldn't believe what she was hearing. "So you've secretly been evaluating me?" "No. I've been admiring you." The words only made her angrier. "You could have asked me out." "I couldn't." He looked away for a moment. "You're 28. I'm 48. I'm your employer." The power imbalance alone made that impossible. "So, you waited until my life fell apart?" His jaw tightened. "I waited because I never intended to say anything." Silence settled between them. Then, he continued. "But this morning, I watched someone I care about walk into my office completely broken. I realized that if I stayed silent forever, I would regret it for the rest of my life." Savannah slowly stood. "So, this is your solution? You save my sister, and I become your reward?" "No. You become my partner." She shook her head furiously. "Those aren't the same thing." "I know. Then why are you doing this?" Adrian sighed. "Because I don't know another way." She felt tears filling her eyes again. "You think money gives you the right to ask for someone's future?" "No. It gives me the ability to offer one." "I don't need your future. I need my sister." The words echoed through the office. For the first time, Adrian looked genuinely hurt. "I'm aware of that." "Then just lend me the money. I'll pay you back." "You won't." "You don't know that. I've already done the math." He walked toward a tablet on his desk. Without saying another word, he opened several spreadsheets. Projected salaries, loan repayment schedules, interest calculations. Even with aggressive assumptions, it would take Savannah nearly 30 years to repay the debt. And that assumed nothing ever went wrong.
No illness, no unemployment,
No children.
no emergencies.
Deep down, she knew he was right. "I hate this." "I know. I hate that you're right." "I know. And I hate even more that you're asking this of me." Adrian lowered the tablet. "I understand."
No.
She whispered. "I don't think you do." She grabbed her purse. "If you really cared about me, you'd never ask me to make this choice." She walked to the door. Just before leaving, Adrian spoke one last time. "I won't pressure you." She stopped but didn't turn around. "The decision is entirely yours. If you say no, I'll accept it. If you say yes, I'll spend the rest of my life proving you made the right decision." She closed her eyes, then walked out. The Miami heat hit her the moment she stepped outside the building. People hurried along Brickell Avenue carrying iced coffees. Luxury cars rolled past. Tourists laughed while taking pictures near the bay. Everything looked exactly the same. Yet her entire world had changed. She got into her car and drove aimlessly through downtown. She couldn't think.
Couldn't breathe.
Couldn't even cry anymore. Was Adrian sincere? Or had he simply found the perfect opportunity to trap her? She didn't know. By lunchtime, she had already called every relative she could think of. An uncle in Tampa. A cousin in Orlando. Former classmates. Old neighbors. Friends she hadn't spoken to in years. Everyone wanted to help. Nobody had $200,000. She launched an online fundraiser. Applications for emergency medical loans. Requests to nonprofit organizations. Even personal loan companies. Hours passed. Every answer was the same. Denied.
Declined.
Insufficient income.
Too much risk.
Late that evening, her father finally called. His exhausted voice instantly told her something was wrong. Savannah. They moved Harper into intensive care. Her heart stopped. The doctors say they can't wait much longer. They're doing everything they can, but without payment. He couldn't finish the sentence. Then came the question Savannah had been dreading all day. Sweetheart. Didn't you say your boss wanted to help? She closed her eyes. A single tear rolled down her cheek. She realized she was standing at the edge of an impossible decision. On one side, everything she had dreamed for herself. Freedom.
Love.
The right to choose her own future. On the other, her little sister's life. And the clock was running out. Savannah didn't sleep that night. She sat alone in her apartment overlooking the Miami skyline, staring at the city lights that blurred through her tear-filled eyes. Her phone lay on the coffee table beside dozens of unanswered emails from banks, charities, and lending companies. Every notification carried the same message. We're sorry. Unfortunately, we are unable to approve. Just after 5 in the morning, another call came from her mother. Savannah. Her voice sounded completely drained. The doctors say Harper's blood pressure is becoming unstable. Savannah closed her eyes. I know. They're trying everything. We've been praying all night. Her mother hesitated. Your father mentioned your boss. Savannah's stomach tightened. What about him? He said maybe there's still someone at work who can help. Savannah forced a smile her mother couldn't see. I'll figure something out. You always do. After hanging up, she remained frozen for nearly 10 minutes. Then she quietly stood. She showered, put on a navy blue business suit, tied her hair back, applied just enough makeup to hide that she had cried all night. When she looked into the mirror, she barely recognized herself. She arrived at the office before sunrise. The reception area was empty. Cleaning crews were still vacuuming the hallways. She knew Adrian always arrived before everyone else. Sure enough, the light beneath his office door was already on. Savannah stood outside for almost a full minute. Her hand rested on the doorknob. Every instinct told her to walk away. But every image of Harper lying unconscious in the ICU pulled her back. Finally, she knocked.
Come in.
Adrian looked up from a stack of financial reports. The moment he saw her expression, he understood. He slowly removed his reading glasses. You've made your decision. Savannah nodded. Her voice barely came out. Yes. Silence. I'll marry you. Neither of them spoke. She had expected relief. Perhaps even satisfaction. Instead, Adrian looked almost saddened. He stood up slowly, walked around his desk, stopped several feet away, deliberately giving her space. I know what this decision cost you. She looked away.
No.
You don't. Another long silence followed. Finally, he spoke. I intend to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret saving your sister. Savannah's eyes filled with tears again. I'm not asking you to promise anything. I'm asking you to save Harper. You have my word. Without another sentence, Adrian picked up his office phone. Linda, could you come in, please? Within seconds, the company's chief financial officer entered. She looked from Adrian to Savannah, but asked no questions. Linda. Adrian handed her a folder. I need an immediate wire transfer. He calmly named the hospital, then the amount. Linda's eyebrows lifted for only a second before she nodded. I'll process it immediately. Use my personal charitable foundation. Not the company. Yes, sir. And call me the moment the transfer is confirmed. She left without another word. Savannah stared at him. You're doing it already? He looked surprised. I told you I would. You haven't even asked me to sign anything. I won't. No contract.
No.
No prenup before paying? We'll discuss legal paperwork later. The surgery can't wait. She couldn't understand him. You actually trust me?
Y do.
What if I disappear? Adrian smiled faintly. I don't think you will. Less than 20 minutes later, Linda returned. The hospital confirmed receipt. For a moment, the room disappeared. Savannah felt her legs give out. She grabbed the back of a chair before falling. Harper was going to live. The weight crushing her chest for the last 24 hours suddenly lifted. She covered her face with both hands and began crying. Not quiet tears. Deep, uncontrollable sobs. Adrian didn't move toward her. Didn't try to hug her. Didn't touch her. He simply stood nearby, allowing her to cry. Several minutes later, she finally whispered, "Thank you." He nodded once. "You should go to the hospital." "What about work?" "Forget work." "What about?"
A wedding?
"We'll handle that later."
No.
She wiped her eyes. "I gave you my word." "So did I." Adrian looked at her kindly. "Today isn't about us. It's about Harper." The surgery lasted almost 9 hours. Savannah spent every minute pacing the waiting room with her parents. Neither of them knew the truth. They believed Adrian had helped arrange emergency financial assistance through one of the company's executive relief programs. That was the story Savannah had told them. She couldn't bear to tell them anything else. Her mother hugged her repeatedly. "I don't know what we would have done without your company." Her father quietly shook his head. "That CEO of yours. He must be one incredible man." Savannah couldn't answer. Hours later, the surgeon finally appeared. Everyone jumped to their feet. The doctors smiled. The operation was successful. It was difficult, but she's going to recover. Her mother burst into tears. Her father embraced both women. Savannah leaned against the wall. For the first time in 2 days, she allowed herself to breathe. Harper was alive. But as relief washed over her, another realization quietly settled into her heart. The promise she had made that morning was no longer just words. Very soon, she would become Mrs. Adrian Calloway. And she had no idea what kind of life awaited her. The wedding took place exactly 6 days later. There was no extravagant venue.
No orchestra.
No luxury ballroom overlooking the ocean.
No 100 invited guests.
Adrian insisted on something simple. "It wouldn't feel right to celebrate while your sister is still recovering," he told Savannah. So, on a bright Friday afternoon, they exchanged vows at a quiet courthouse in downtown Miami. The only witnesses were Adrian's longtime attorney and Savannah's closest friend, Lily, who still believed the couple had been secretly dating for months. Savannah wore a simple ivory dress. Elegant. Timeless. Nothing flashy. Adrian wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. As they stood before the judge, Savannah felt strangely detached from everything around her. The words echoed through the room. "Do you take?"
Y do.
Her own voice sounded unfamiliar, almost as though someone else had spoken for her. A few photographs were taken outside the courthouse.
No champagne.
No music. No first dance. Within 30 minutes, it was over. She was now Savannah Calloway. The drive to Adrian's home was almost completely silent. His house sat on a quiet waterfront street in Coconut Grove. Tall royal palms lined the entrance. A private dock stretched into Biscayne Bay. The Mediterranean-style estate looked impressive without feeling excessive. It reflected its owner perfectly. Sophisticated. Reserved. Tasteful. As Savannah stepped inside, she expected to feel trapped. Instead, she felt strangely welcomed. Everything was immaculate. Soft neutral colors. Fresh flowers. Natural light pouring through enormous windows. There wasn't a trace of unnecessary luxury. The house felt lived in, not displayed. A middle-aged woman appeared from the kitchen. "Welcome home, Mr. Calloway." She smiled warmly at Savannah. "And welcome to you as well." "This is Rosa," Adrian explained. "She's been helping manage the house for almost 15 years. Rosa hugged Savannah before she could even react. "We're so happy you're here." Savannah forced a polite smile. "Thank you." After Rosa returned to the kitchen, Adrian picked up both of Savannah's suitcases. "Come with me." They walked upstairs. Instead of entering the enormous master bedroom, Adrian continued down another hallway. He stopped in front of a spacious guest suite overlooking the bay. He opened the door. Sunlight filled the room. Fresh flowers sat beside the bed. A walk-in closet stood empty. The private balcony overlooked the water. "This room is yours." Savannah blinked. "My room?" "Yes." She looked at him, confused. "What about?" He answered before she finished. "My bedroom is on the other side of the house." She stared at him. "I don't understand." Adrian carefully placed her luggage beside the closet. I meant what I said. I'm not forcing anything. This marriage happened because of extraordinary circumstances. You deserve time. As much time as you need. Savannah searched his face. There was no hidden expectation.
No manipulation. No disappointment.
Only sincerity. I won't come into your room without permission. If you ever feel uncomfortable, tell me. If one day you decide this marriage can't work, we'll have that conversation. She was speechless. This wasn't what she had prepared herself for. She had spent days imagining awkward conversations, pressure, demands. Instead, he was giving her space. Complete space. You don't owe me anything tonight. He smiled politely. Get some rest. Then he quietly left, closing the door behind him. Savannah remained standing in the middle of the room. She slowly walked to the balcony. The evening breeze carried the scent of salt water. Boats drifted peacefully across the bay. For the first time since saying yes,
She cried.
not because she was afraid, because she no longer understood the man she had married. The following days settled into an unexpected routine. Every morning Adrian left for work before 8. Every evening he returned around 6. He never entered her room, never asked personal questions, never reminded her of their agreement. Instead, he treated her exactly as he treated everyone else, with respect. At dinner they talked about ordinary things.
Books.
Current events. Architecture. Miami traffic. Sometimes they barely spoke at all. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was peaceful. Savannah noticed little details. Adrian always thanked Rosa after every meal. He remembered every employee's birthday. He answered calls from junior staff himself instead of passing them to assistants. More than once she overheard him quietly arranging anonymous donations to families facing medical emergencies. He never mentioned those conversations afterward. One afternoon curiosity got the better of her. She wandered into the home's library. Hundreds of books lined the shelves. Business,
History. Art.
psychology, travel. On one shelf stood dozens of framed photographs. Most featured Adrian with a smiling brunette woman, his late wife. She looked vibrant.
Happy.
In nearly every picture they were laughing. Savannah gently picked up one frame. She suddenly understood something. He hadn't replaced his wife. He hadn't forgotten her. He was simply trying to move forward after years of loneliness. Later that evening during dinner, she asked quietly, "You loved her very much." Adrian looked toward the photograph hanging across the room. "I still do." The honesty caught her off guard. After a moment he added, "Loving someone who passed away doesn't prevent your heart from caring about someone who's still alive." Savannah lowered her eyes. She didn't know how to respond. For the first time, she didn't see Adrian as a wealthy CEO who had made an impossible proposal. She saw a man who had been carrying grief for years. And somehow, that realization made everything far more complicated. Just as she began questioning everything she thought she knew about him, her phone suddenly rang. The caller ID displayed one familiar name, Harper. Savannah smiled immediately and answered, completely unaware that this conversation would change the course of their marriage forever. Savannah answered the call on the first ring. Harper. Her younger sister's voice sounded stronger than it had in weeks. Sis. Savannah instantly smiled. You sound amazing. I actually feel amazing. Harper laughed softly. The physical therapist made me walk halfway down the hallway today. Slowly. But I did it. Savannah closed her eyes in relief. I'm so proud of you. I've been waiting to tell you something. What? The doctor said if everything keeps improving, I might be discharged next week. Savannah felt tears welling in her eyes again. That's incredible. I know. There was a brief pause. And I finally get to meet your husband. Savannah's smile disappeared. Oh, you've been avoiding that. I haven't. You have. Harper laughed. Mom and Dad keep talking about how wonderful Adrian is. But every time I ask about him, you change the subject. Savannah looked across the dining room. Adrian was quietly reading documents on his tablet, pretending not to listen. I've just been busy. Liar. Harper giggled. I want both of you here tomorrow. They're allowing visitors again. You can't say no. Before Savannah could answer, Adrian looked up. He had heard enough to understand. He simply smiled. We'll be there. Savannah glanced at him. You didn't have to. I wanted to. The next afternoon they drove to Baptist Hospital. Traffic along US 1 was unusually light. For most of the drive, neither of them spoke. Finally, Savannah broke the silence. You really don't have to keep pretending. Adrian kept his eyes on the road. I'm not pretending. My family believes we're in love. I know. You could tell them the truth. He shook his head. Not while Harper is recovering. They deserve peace. She looked out the window. For the first time, she realized he was protecting not himself, but her family. Before entering the hospital, Adrian stopped at a local market. I'll only be a few minutes. He returned carrying 2 large bags. One was filled with fresh tropical fruit. The other held flowers. Not expensive roses. Not orchids. Just bright sunflowers mixed with wildflowers. Savannah smiled despite herself. Those are Harper's favorite. I asked your mother. You remembered? I try to remember things that matter. She looked at the bouquet. No one had ever paid attention to such a small detail before. The moment they entered Harper's room, her face lit up. So this is him. Harper grinned from her hospital bed. You've been hiding him from us. Adrian laughed. I didn't realize I was being hidden. Harper held out her hand. It's nice to finally meet the man who saved my life. Adrian gently shook it. It's nice to finally meet the woman everyone's been talking about. Oh, I've heard you're stubborn. Harper laughed loudly. Mom told you that. Actually, Adrian smiled. Your sister did. Savannah rolled her eyes. I said determined. Same thing. Everyone laughed. For the first time in what felt like forever, the hospital room sounded happy. Savannah watched quietly as Adrian spoke with her parents. He never dominated the conversation. He asked questions, listened carefully, made everyone feel included. Even Harper, despite being exhausted, smiled almost constantly. At one point she whispered, So. Adrian leaned closer. Yes. Take care of my sister. He answered, without hesitation. I intend to. No. Harper smiled knowingly. I mean really take care of her. She acts strong, but she worries about everyone except herself. Adrian glanced toward Savannah.
Have I noticed?
Harper nodded. Don't let her carry everything alone anymore. He answered softly. I won't. Savannah overheard every word. Something tightened inside her chest. Later, while Harper rested, Adrian quietly stepped into the hallway. Savannah followed. She found him speaking with Harper's surgeon. How is she really doing? The doctor smiled. She's ahead of schedule. Excellent. If there's anything else she needs, please contact me directly. The surgeon nodded. I appreciate everything you've done. Adrian simply shook his hand. No family should lose someone because of money. Savannah stood frozen around the corner. He didn't know she was listening. There was no audience. No one to impress. No reason to perform. Yet he sounded exactly the same as he always did.
Genuine.
On the drive home, Miami's skyline glowed orange beneath the setting sun. Neither of them spoke for several miles. Finally, Savannah broke the silence. Thank you. Adrian glanced at her. For what? For today. My parents haven't smiled like that in weeks. Harper hasn't laughed since before she collapsed. You gave them something I couldn't. He smiled faintly. They gave me something too. She looked confused. What? The chance to see you smile. Savannah looked away before he could notice the color rising in her cheeks. After another minute, Adrian quietly pulled the car into a small park overlooking Biscayne Bay. He turned off the engine. The waves gently lapped against the seawall. I owe you an apology. She looked at him. For what? For the way I asked you to marry me. He took a slow breath. I've replayed that conversation in my head every day. It sounded like I was putting a price on your future. She remained silent. I regret that. Then he said something she never expected. The truth is, even if you had refused, I would have paid for Harper's surgery anyway. Savannah stared at him. What? I couldn't have lived with myself otherwise. You were serious? Completely. Then, why ask me at all? Adrian looked out across the water. Because I'd already fallen in love with you. I thought if I stayed silent forever, I'd lose the only chance I'd ever have. And instead, I almost lost her respect. Savannah couldn't find a single word to say. Everything she believed about that terrible day had just been turned upside down. The words hung in the air. Savannah couldn't move. She stared at Adrian, searching his face for any sign that he was lying. There wasn't one. The breeze coming off Biscayne Bay gently rustled the palm trees above them, but inside the car everything felt perfectly still. You would have paid anyway? Her voice was barely a whisper. Adrian nodded. Yes. Even if I'd walked out of your office and never spoken to you again? Yes. Even if I'd married someone else one day? A faint smile crossed his face. It would have hurt. He looked down at his hands. But Harper still deserved to live. Savannah felt her throat tighten. Then why didn't you tell me? Because I didn't want your decision to come from guilt. She stared at him in disbelief. So, I spent days believing you were manipulating me. I know. I hated you. I know. I thought you saw me as someone who could be bought. I know. His calm acceptance made her feel even worse. You never tried to defend yourself. Adrian looked toward the water. You had every right to be angry. Savannah felt tears beginning to form again. I judged you. You judged the situation. They aren't the same thing. Silence settled between them. Finally, Adrian turned back toward her. Savannah, if I could go back, I would still save Harper, but I would ask you differently. She looked at him. I would have paid for the surgery first, and only after she recovered. I would have invited you to dinner. Despite everything, Savannah laughed. A real laugh. It surprised both of them. You really think I would have said yes? He smiled. Probably not. I would have kept asking. She shook her head, smiling through tears. You really are stubborn. So I've been told. Life slowly began to settle into a routine. Harper was released from the hospital 9 days later. The entire Hayes family gathered outside the hospital entrance to welcome her home. Her mother cried. Her father hugged everyone at once. Harper walked slowly, leaning on a cane, but she was smiling brighter than anyone else. When she reached Adrian, she wrapped her arms around him. Thank you. He hugged her carefully. You don't owe me thanks.
Y do.
You gave me another chance. Adrian smiled. Use it well. I will. Over the next several weeks, Savannah noticed more and more things she had never paid attention to before. Every Saturday morning, Adrian disappeared for several hours. One weekend, curiosity finally got the better of her. Where do you go every Saturday? He looked almost embarrassed. Oh. It's nothing important. She raised an eyebrow. That usually means it's very important. He laughed quietly. If you really want to know, you can come. The following Saturday, they drove across Miami together. Savannah expected another business meeting. Instead, Adrian parked outside a community center in Little Havana. Children were running across a basketball court. Volunteers carried boxes of groceries inside. What is this? A foundation. You own it. He shook his head.
No.
I just help. The director of the center spotted Adrian immediately. You're here. Several children ran toward him. Mr. Adrian, to Savannah's complete surprise. Her serious, reserved husband knelt down and greeted every child by name. He asked about school, homework, soccer games, birthdays. One little girl proudly handed him a drawing she'd made. I drew your boat. It's beautiful. I'm hanging this in my office. The little girl beamed. Savannah stood frozen. This wasn't the billionaire CEO she knew from the office. This was someone completely different. For the next 3 hours, Adrian unloaded food deliveries, repaired broken shelves, served lunch, and laughed with dozens of children.
No photographers. No reporters. No publicity.
When they finally returned to the car, Savannah couldn't stay silent. You've been doing this. For how long? Almost 12 years. 12 years. He nodded. My wife started volunteering here. After she passed away, I kept coming. You never told anyone. It isn't something you tell people. It's something you do. Savannah looked out the window. She suddenly understood why every employee respected him. Respect couldn't be bought. It had to be earned. And Adrian had earned it 1,000 times over. That evening, after dinner, Savannah found herself sitting alone on the dock behind the house. The bay was perfectly calm. She heard footsteps behind her. Adrian approached carrying 2 mugs of hot chocolate. I wasn't sure if you'd want company. She accepted one of the mugs. Stay. For several minutes, they watched the lights reflecting across the water. Finally, Savannah spoke. I owe you an apology. He looked surprised. For what? For believing the worst about you. You had every reason.
No.
She shook her head. I never gave you the chance to explain. You were trying to save your sister. I know. But somewhere along the way, I forgot to see the person standing in front of me. Adrian didn't answer. Instead, he simply smiled. It was a small smile. Gentle. Grateful. Without thinking, Savannah reached over and rested her hand lightly on his. For a brief second, she considered pulling it away. Instead, she left it there. Adrian didn't squeeze her hand. He simply let their hands rest together on the wooden bench. And somehow, that simple touch meant more than any grand romantic gesture ever could. For the first time since their marriage, being beside him no longer felt like an obligation. It felt comfortable. Neither of them realized that someone standing on the neighboring dock had just recognized Adrian. The stranger quietly raised a phone, snapped a photo of the couple holding hands, and smiled to himself. By the following morning, that single picture would begin a chain of events neither of them could have imagined. The photo spread across social media before sunrise. It wasn't dramatic. There was no scandal.
No argument. No headline aborti moment.
Just a simple picture. A man and a woman sitting quietly on a dock overlooking Biscayne Bay, their hands resting together. But because the man happened to be Adrian Calloway, the internet immediately became interested. By 8 o'clock Monday morning, several Miami business blogs had reposted the image. Reclusive CEO finally finds love again? Who is Adrian Calloway's mystery bride? Billionaire executive spotted with wife after private wedding. Someone had even discovered the courthouse marriage record. Within hours, the story was everywhere. Savannah had no idea. She walked into Sterling Financial carrying her usual coffee. The receptionist smiled unusually wide. "Good morning, Mrs. Calloway." Savannah stopped. "What did you call me?" The young woman looked embarrassed. "Oh, I thought everyone already knew." "Knew what?" Instead of answering, she quietly turned her computer monitor toward Savannah. There it was. The article. And the photograph. Savannah's heart sank. Within minutes, she noticed employees whispering as she passed. Some smiled warmly. Others simply stared. She hurried toward Adrian's office. He was already waiting. "I assume you've seen it." She nodded. "This is a disaster."
No.
"It feels like one." He calmly closed the newspaper lying on his desk.
It'll pass.
"You don't know corporate gossip." She paced across the room. "They're going to think I married you for money." "They probably will. Some people will." She stopped walking. "And you're okay with that?"
No.
"But I learned a long time ago that you can't control what strangers choose to believe." She slowly sat down. "What do we do?" "The same thing we've always done." "Which is?" "We tell the truth when someone asks. And ignore everyone else." Unfortunately, ignoring everyone else became impossible. That afternoon, the company's board of directors called an emergency meeting. Savannah insisted on staying out of it. She spent the next 2 hours trying to focus on paperwork, but every passing minute made her more anxious. Finally, Adrian returned. He looked tired. How bad was it? He loosened his tie. Worse than expected. Her stomach tightened. "What happened?" "Most of the board congratulated me." She blinked. "That doesn't sound bad." "So what was?" He hesitated. "One board member suggested you were hired years ago because of a personal relationship with me." Savannah's face went pale. "What?" "He implied your promotions weren't earned." She stood immediately.
No.
"I worked for everything." "I know. I stayed late." "I know. I earned every performance review." "I know." She slammed her hand against the desk. "This isn't fair."
No.
"It isn't." She looked at him. "What did you say?" A faint smile appeared on Adrian's face. "I asked him to leave." "You what?" "I removed him from the meeting." Savannah stared. "He owns almost 12% of the company." "I know." "You can't just throw out a board member." "I can. And I did." She couldn't believe what she was hearing. "He questioned your integrity without evidence." "I won't tolerate that." Later that evening, they arrived home exhausted. Rosa immediately noticed something was wrong. "I made chicken soup."
No arguments.
"You both need it." Adrian smiled. "Thank you." As they sat in the kitchen eating quietly, Savannah finally spoke. "You defended me." He looked up. "Of course. You could have stayed silent."
No.
"It would have been easier." "It would have been wrong." She looked down at her bowl. "No one has ever stood up for me like that." Adrian answered softly. "Get used to it." A few days later, Harper came over for dinner for the first time since leaving the hospital. She moved slowly, but no longer needed her cane. The house instantly felt brighter. Harper wandered through every room, amazed by the waterfront views. "I still can't believe you live here." Adrian laughed. "It's just a house."
No.
She smiled. "It's a mansion." During dinner, Harper suddenly looked between the two of them. "So?" Savannah immediately recognized that expression. "What?" Harper grinned mischievously. "You two are weird." Savannah nearly choked on her drink. "What does that mean?" "You look at each other like you're dating. But you act like you're still on your first date." Rosa burst into laughter from the kitchen. Even Adrian smiled. Harper pointed her fork toward them. "I'm serious." You both blush. You both smile. You both pretend nothing's happening. Savannah felt her cheeks turning red. "Harper, I'm just saying, If you two don't kiss soon, I'm filing a family complaint. Everyone laughed. Everyone except Savannah. Because somewhere deep inside, she realized Harper wasn't entirely wrong. Without noticing when it had happened, she had begun looking forward to every breakfast, every dinner, every quiet conversation on the dock, every drive through Miami, every evening waiting for Adrian's car to pull into the driveway. And that realization frightened her more than anything else. Because this time, if she fell in love, it wouldn't be out of gratitude. It would be completely real. The following weeks passed more peacefully than Savannah ever thought possible. For the first time in months, life no longer revolved around hospital visits, emergency phone calls, or impossible decisions. Harper continued getting stronger every day. She returned to online classes, then to short walks around the neighborhood. Soon, she was talking about finishing medical school again. Watching her laugh without pain felt like a miracle. One evening, after Harper and their parents had gone home, Savannah stood alone on the terrace overlooking Biscayne Bay. The sunset painted the water in shades of orange and crimson. She heard the familiar sound of the sliding glass door behind her. Adrian stepped outside carrying 2 cups of coffee. I thought you might still be out here. She accepted one with a grateful smile. You know me pretty well. I'm trying. For several minutes they stood side by side without speaking. Neither of them felt the need to fill the silence anymore. It had become one of the things Savannah appreciated most about him. With Adrian, silence was never uncomfortable. It was peaceful. Finally, she looked at him. Can I ask you something? Anything. What made you notice me in the first place? He smiled to himself. You really want to know? She nodded. I've wondered for weeks. Adrian leaned against the railing. It wasn't one big moment. It was hundreds of little ones. She frowned. What do you mean? I noticed that you always remembered the security guards' names. You brought coffee for the receptionist whenever she worked overtime. You stayed after work to help interns without anyone asking. You never complained when something wasn't your responsibility. Savannah looked surprised. You noticed all that? I notice people. He chuckled softly. But there was one day I knew I'd never forget. She waited. It was about 3 years ago. There was a terrible thunderstorm. You probably don't even remember it. She searched her memory. Maybe. The power went out across half the building. Everyone was rushing home. You were the last employee to leave. She smiled faintly. I remember. There was an elderly janitor trying to move heavy equipment. You stayed almost an hour helping him clean water from the lobby. You thought no one saw you. Savannah laughed quietly. I completely forgot about that. I didn't. Adrian looked into her eyes. That was the day I realized your kindness wasn't something you turned on when people were watching. It was simply who you were. Savannah felt her heart beating faster. No one had ever described her that way before. A few days later, Adrian surprised her again. I have a meeting canceled tomorrow. So, I was wondering if you'd spend the afternoon with me. She smiled. Is this a business meeting?
No.
A charity event?
No.
She crossed her arms. Then what is it? A real date. Savannah blinked. He looked almost nervous. If you don't want to, I'd love to. The answer escaped before she could overthink it. Adrian smiled. A genuine smile that made him look years younger. I'll pick you up at 3. The next afternoon they drove south along the coast. Savannah expected another elegant restaurant. Instead, Adrian parked near Matheson Hammock Park. She looked around. This is your big surprise? You'll see. They rented 2 bicycles. Spent an hour riding beneath enormous banyan trees. Stopped to watch sailboats drift across the water. Savannah laughed when Adrian somehow managed to drip chocolate onto the sleeve of his expensive linen shirt. I thought CEOs were supposed to look sophisticated. We're human too. Barely. She handed him a napkin. By sunset, they were sitting on the beach, their shoes kicked off in the sand. The waves rolled gently onto the shore. Children chased seagulls nearby. Everything felt normal.
No bodyguards. No luxury yachts.
No expensive dinners. Just 2 people enjoying each other's company. Savannah realized she hadn't thought about the circumstances of their marriage once all afternoon. She'd simply enjoyed being with him. As darkness settled over the beach, Adrian reached into his jacket pocket. Savannah looked at him curiously. I promise this isn't another proposal. She laughed. Good. I don't think my heart could survive that. He pulled out a small velvet box. Her smile faded. Adrian, it's not jewelry. He opened the box. Inside lay a simple silver key. She looked confused. What is this? The key to my late wife's art studio. Savannah stared at him. No one's been inside. She looked back at the key. Why are you giving it to me? Because.
He paused.
I think she'd want someone to bring life back into that place. I don't. Savannah whispered. I could never replace her. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to create something new. She slowly accepted the key. It wasn't expensive. It wasn't flashy. Yet somehow, it felt like the most meaningful gift anyone had ever given her. As they stood to leave the beach, Savannah instinctively slipped her hand into Adrian's. This time, she didn't even think about it. She simply wanted to hold his hand. Adrian looked down, surprised. Then he smiled. Neither of them noticed the elderly couple sitting on a nearby bench. The woman watched them walk away together and whispered to her husband. Look at those two. They're completely in love. Savannah couldn't hear those words. But deep inside, she was beginning to wonder if they might actually be true. Savannah held the silver key in the palm of her hand long after they returned home. It was surprisingly light.
Plain.
Unremarkable. Yet it carried more meaning than any expensive necklace or diamond ever could. Adrian had trusted her with something he hadn't shared with anyone since his wife passed away. Not because he wanted to erase his past, but because he finally felt ready to open a new chapter. That realization stayed with Savannah all night. The following morning, while Adrian was already at the office, Savannah stood outside a white door at the end of the upstairs hallway. She had walked past it dozens of times. Until now, it had always remained locked. She looked down at the small silver key. Her hand trembled slightly. I hope I'm doing the right thing, she whispered. The lock clicked. She slowly pushed the door open. Sunlight poured through large skylights. Dust floated lazily through the air. Paintbrushes still rested inside glass jars. Half-finished canvases leaned against one wall. Shelves overflowed with sketchbooks, paints, and handmade pottery. Everything remained exactly as it had been years earlier. Savannah stepped inside carefully, almost afraid to touch anything. This wasn't just a room. It was someone's dream. Someone's memories. Someone's life. She walked slowly toward a wooden easel standing near the window. A blank canvas still waited there, as though its owner had planned to return the next morning. Savannah gently brushed a thin layer of dust from its surface. Her eyes filled with tears. I promise. I'll take good care of this place. That evening Adrian came home a little earlier than usual. He noticed tiny streaks of paint on Savannah's hands before she even said a word. His eyes widened. You went inside. She nodded. I hope that's okay. For a second, he simply stood there. Then a warm smile appeared. It is. You weren't upset?
No.
He looked toward the hallway. I've been waiting a long time for someone to open that door. Savannah hesitated. I moved a few things. I cleaned the windows. I organized some brushes. I hope I didn't. You didn't. He gently interrupted her. You brought the room back to life. Weeks passed. The art studio slowly transformed. Not into something different, but into something alive again. Fresh flowers appeared near the windows. New canvases rested beside the old ones. Music sometimes drifted into the hallway while Savannah painted. One Saturday afternoon, Adrian quietly stopped outside the open door. He didn't interrupt. He simply watched. Savannah stood in front of a canvas, wearing jeans covered in colorful paint. She hadn't noticed him. She was completely absorbed in her work. For the first time in months, he saw her looking completely carefree, completely happy. Rosa walked by carrying folded laundry. She smiled when she noticed Adrian standing there. You've been watching her for 5 minutes. I know. You should tell her how proud you are. He shook his head. She doesn't need praise. She needs freedom.
Rosa laughed softly.
You really love that girl. Adrian answered, without taking his eyes off Savannah. More every day. Later that evening, Harper stopped by unexpectedly. She walked through the front door carrying 2 large pizza boxes. I brought dinner. Rosa peeked out from the kitchen. You know I already cooked. I know. Harper grinned. But pizza wins. Within minutes, everyone gathered around the dining table. They laughed, shared stories, argued about which Miami Beach was the best. For the first time, it felt less like guests visiting a mansion, and more like a real family spending time together. Halfway through dinner, Harper suddenly looked at Savannah. So, Savannah sighed dramatically. I don't like that tone. Harper smiled mischievously. When are you going to stop pretending? Pretending what? Harper pointed between Savannah and Adrian. That you're not hopelessly in love. Savannah nearly dropped her slice of pizza. Harper, I'm serious. She turned toward Adrian. Can I ask you something? Of course. Have you told her you love her? Adrian smiled. I don't need to. Harper frowned. What does that mean? He looked at Savannah. If someone truly loves you, they should feel it every single day, not just hear it. The room became unusually quiet. Savannah couldn't look away from him. There was no performance, no dramatic speech, just quiet honesty. Harper leaned back in her chair. Okay, I officially approve. Everyone laughed, even Savannah. Late that night, after everyone had gone home, Savannah found Adrian sitting alone on the dock. She walked over quietly. You disappeared. I wanted a little fresh air. She sat beside him. Neither of them spoke for a while. Finally, Savannah reached into her pocket. She pulled out the silver key. I think I'm finished. He looked confused. Finished. Not with the studio. With being afraid. She placed the key in his hand. I don't need this anymore. Why? Because it doesn't feel like your house anymore. She smiled softly. It finally feels like our home. Adrian looked at her for a long moment. There was emotion in his eyes she had never seen before. He slowly closed his fingers around the key. Then, without saying a word, Savannah leaned forward, placed one gentle hand against his cheek, and kissed him. Not out of gratitude. Not because she felt she owed him anything. Not because of a promise. She kissed him because she loved him. When they finally pulled apart, Adrian rested his forehead against hers. I've dreamed about that moment for a very long time. Savannah smiled through happy tears. So have I. Neither of them realized that inside the house, Harper had accidentally seen everything through the kitchen window. She quietly smiled to herself and whispered, I knew it. But the happiness of that evening was about to be tested, because the very next morning, someone from Adrian's past would unexpectedly appear at their front door. The doorbell rang at exactly 8:15 the next morning. Savannah was still pouring coffee when Rosa looked through the security monitor. Her smile disappeared. Mr. Calloway, I think you should see this. Adrian walked over. The moment he looked at the screen, the color drained from his face. Savannah noticed immediately. Who is it? For several seconds, he didn't answer. Finally, he took a slow breath. Someone from my past. He opened the front door. Standing outside was an elegant woman in her early 40s. She wore a tailored cream-colored suit, oversized sunglasses, and carried herself with effortless confidence. Behind her stood a chauffeur beside a black luxury SUV. She smiled as if no time had passed. Hello, Adrian. It's been a long time. Savannah quietly stepped into the hallway. The woman noticed her immediately. Her smile faded. So, she glanced back at Adrian. The rumors were true. You actually got married. Adrian remained calm. What are you doing here, Victoria? Savannah finally heard the woman's name.
Victoria.
She removed her sunglasses. I was in Miami. I thought it was time we talked. I don't. His answer was immediate.
Victoria laughed softly.
You've always been stubborn. She looked toward Savannah. And you must be the new wife. She extended her hand.
I'm Victoria Bennett.
Savannah politely shook it. Savannah. Victoria studied her for a moment. You look younger than I expected. The comment wasn't openly rude, but it wasn't kind either. Rosa quietly invited everyone into the living room. Victoria sat comfortably as though she had visited the house 100 times before.
Savannah noticed something.
She knew exactly where everything was. The coffee cups, the bookshelves, even the old piano near the window. She had clearly been here before. A lot. What do you want? Victoria crossed one leg over the other. Straight to business. Some things never change. He didn't smile. She sighed. My company is opening a regional office in Miami. I thought perhaps we could work together again. Savannah looked between them. You worked together? Victoria answered before Adrian could. We built our first investment company together. She smiled nostalgically. Before life became complicated, Adrian's voice turned colder. Our business partnership ended years ago. So did our friendship. Victoria looked almost disappointed. I'm cautious. There is a difference. After a few uncomfortable minutes, Adrian excused himself to answer a phone call. As soon as he left the room, Victoria turned toward Savannah. So, how did you meet him? We worked together. Of course. She smiled politely. You know, I almost married Adrian once. Savannah looked surprised. You did. We were engaged. The words landed like a stone. Victoria watched Savannah's reaction carefully. He never told you? Savannah forced herself to remain calm.
No.
Victoria leaned back. I suppose he doesn't enjoy talking about old mistakes. What happened? Victoria looked toward the window. We wanted different things. I wanted to expand internationally. He wanted to slow down. Eventually, our relationship couldn't survive. She smiled sadly. I loved him once. Before Savannah could answer, Adrian returned. His expression immediately told Victoria that he knew exactly what she had been discussing. You should leave.
His voice was calm,
But firm.
Victoria stood.
I didn't come here to cause problems. You've done that anyway. She picked up her handbag. As she reached the door, she turned towards Savannah one last time. Take care of him. He gives people far more chances than they deserve. Then she looked at Adrian. You deserve to be happy. For just a second, the tension disappeared. Adrian simply nodded. So do you. Victoria smiled faintly before walking toward the waiting SUV. A few moments later, she was gone. Silence filled the house. Savannah looked toward Adrian. You were engaged. Yes. You never mentioned her. I never mentioned a lot of things. She hesitated. Were you in love with her? He answered honestly. I thought I was. And your wife? A gentle smile appeared on his face. That was different.
How?
I admired Victoria. I respected her. But with Claire? He looked toward the bay. I understood what home felt like. Savannah quietly moved closer. And now? He smiled. Now. I finally understand that home isn't a place. It's the person you're excited to come back to. Their eyes met. Before either of them could speak again, Adrian's phone rang. He answered. His expression changed instantly. What happened? Savannah's heart skipped. He listened silently for several seconds. Then he ended the call. What is it? He looked directly at her. There's been an accident. Savannah's face turned pale. Who? Adrian took a deep breath. It's your father. And, in that instant, everything changed once again. For a moment, Savannah couldn't hear anything. It's my dad. Adrian nodded grimly. The hospital just called. They said he was involved in a traffic accident. Her coffee cup slipped from her hands and shattered across the kitchen floor.
Rosa gasped.
Savannah didn't even notice. Is he alive? They said he's conscious. But they want immediate family there. She grabbed her purse with trembling hands. Let's go. The drive to Jackson Memorial Hospital felt endless. Every red light seemed to last forever. Neither of them spoke. Adrian kept one hand on the steering wheel while the other rested quietly beside the gearshift. Halfway there, Savannah reached over and held his hand. She didn't even realize she had done it. She simply needed to know someone was there. He gently squeezed her fingers. We'll get through this. She nodded silently. Her mother was waiting outside the emergency department. The moment she saw Savannah, she burst into tears. Oh, thank God you're here. Savannah hugged her tightly. What happened? He was driving home from the grocery store. A delivery truck ran a red light. The police said it wasn't his fault. Savannah closed her eyes. Where is he? The doctors are examining him. Mr. Hayes? Everyone stood. The good news is that he's going to recover. Savannah let out a shaky breath. He suffered several broken ribs and a fractured leg. There was also a mild concussion. But considering the impact, he was extremely fortunate. Her mother covered her face and cried with relief. When can we see him? In a few minutes. When they entered the hospital room, Savannah's father managed a weak smile. Well, I guess this wasn't how I planned to spend my Tuesday. Everyone laughed through tears. Even Harper. I suppose you've rescued this family twice now. Adrian smiled. I'm just glad you're okay. Savannah watched them quietly. Her father had always been cautious around wealthy people. He believed money often changed people. Yet with Adrian, there was no distance.
No awkwardness.
Only genuine respect. Her father reached out his hand. Adrian shook it firmly. Take care of my girls if anything ever happens to me. Adrian answered without hesitation. I already consider them my family. Savannah felt tears filling her eyes once again. Over the following weeks, life became busy again. Between hospital visits, physical therapy appointments, Harper's recovery, and helping her parents, Savannah barely noticed how naturally Adrian became part of everything. He drove her father to medical appointments, installed safety rails around her parents' home without telling anyone, quietly paid for physical therapy sessions that insurance refused to cover. And somehow, he never mentioned any of it afterward.
To him,
it wasn't generosity. It was simply what family did. One Saturday afternoon, Savannah stopped by her parents' house alone. Her father was sitting on the back porch, watching the sunset. He motioned for her to sit beside him. For a while, neither of them spoke. You love him. Savannah laughed nervously. Is it that obvious? He chuckled. Only to everyone. She looked down. I didn't expect this. I know. I thought I'd always remember our marriage as the hardest decision of my life. And now, she smiled softly. Now I can't imagine my life without him. Her father nodded. I've been wanting to tell you something. She looked at him. The day after my accident, Adrian came to visit me. You weren't there yet. Savannah frowned. He never mentioned that. He asked me for permission. Permission? Savannah blinked. What did you say? Her father smiled warmly. I told him something very simple. What? If my daughter ever looks at you the way your eyes look at her, then you've already become my son. Savannah couldn't hold back her tears. Her father gently squeezed her hand. Character did. That evening, Savannah returned home earlier than Adrian. The house was unusually quiet.
Rosa smiled knowingly.
He's still at the office. Savannah nodded. I'll wait. She wandered upstairs. Without thinking, she entered the art studio. The room had changed so much over the past months. The once silent space was now filled with color. Paintings lined the walls. Sketches covered the tables. Plants stood near every window. It finally felt alive again. An idea suddenly came to her. Brush after brush. Color after color. As darkness settled outside, she finally stepped back. It showed a quiet wooden dock stretching into Biscayne Bay at sunset. Holding hands.
No faces.
No details. Just silhouettes. But anyone who saw it would know exactly who they were. Savannah smiled. This one's for you. Just then, she heard the front door downstairs open. Adrian was home, completely unaware that the next few minutes would become one of the most unforgettable moments of his life. Adrian quietly closed the front door behind him. The house was unusually peaceful. Rosa appeared from the kitchen with a warm smile. Long day. He loosened his tie and sighed. You could say that. She smiled knowingly. Go upstairs. Someone's been waiting for you. Before he could ask another question, Rosa disappeared back into the kitchen. Adrian frowned with curiosity. He climbed the staircase slowly. As he reached the second floor, he noticed something unusual. The door to the art studio was slightly open. A soft light spilled into the hallway. He hadn't seen that room glowing in the evening for years. Carefully, he stepped inside. Savannah? She turned around, a little paint still on her hands, and smiled nervously. I wasn't sure if you'd be home before I finished. His eyes slowly wandered around the room. The studio looked completely different now. Fresh flowers stood on the windowsill. Paintbrushes were neatly arranged. The scent of paint mixed with a salty breeze drifting in from the bay. For the first time since Claire's passing, the room felt alive. Then Adrian noticed the canvas standing on the easel. He slowly walked toward it, his footsteps almost silent. It was a painting of the dock behind their home. The sunset reflected across the calm water.
2 people sat side by side.
Holding hands. There were no faces. No names. No details. Yet he instantly knew who they were. He remained completely still. For several long moments, he couldn't say a word. Savannah suddenly felt nervous. I know it isn't perfect. I wanted to thank you. Adrian finally turned toward her. His eyes were shining. You painted this. For me? She nodded. You gave me back my confidence. You believed in me before I believed in myself. You became part of my family. And she took a slow breath. You gave me a home. Her voice became softer. I wanted to give you something money could never buy. Adrian slowly walked toward her. There isn't a single gift in the world that means more to me than this. He gently touched the edge of the canvas. I'll keep it forever. Savannah smiled through happy tears. So, I guess we're even. He laughed quietly. I don't think we'll ever be keeping score. Several months later, life had changed in ways neither of them could have imagined. Harper had fully recovered and returned to medical school. She often joked that surviving such an experience only strengthened her determination to become a doctor. Savannah officially launched her own landscape and outdoor design studio. What began as a dream had quickly become a successful business. Ironically, many of her first clients came through recommendations from people who had never even heard she was married to one of Miami's wealthiest businessmen. They hired her because her work spoke for itself, exactly the way she wanted it. Adrian couldn't have been prouder. Whenever someone congratulated him on her success, he always answered the same way. I didn't build her career. She did. I simply believed in her. One warm spring evening, the entire family gathered for dinner at the house in Coconut Grove. Rosa had prepared everyone's favorite dishes. Harper laughed as she shared stories from medical school. Savannah's parents looked healthier and happier than they had in years. The atmosphere was filled with laughter. At one point, Harper tapped her glass with a spoon. "I have an announcement." Everyone looked at her.
She grinned.
"I passed my surgical rotation." The table erupted in applause. "I knew you could do it." Harper smiled. "I almost didn't get the chance." The room became quiet. She looked directly at Adrian. "I'll never forget what you did for me." Adrian shook his head gently. Give you the opportunity. You did the hard part." She smiled. "Still. Thank you." After dinner, everyone stepped outside to watch the sunset over Biscayne Bay. The same dock where so many important conversations had taken place now echoed with laughter. Savannah quietly slipped her hand into Adrian's. This time, it felt completely natural. He smiled at her. "Do you remember the first time we sat here?" She laughed. "I was convinced I'd made the biggest mistake of my life. And now," she looked out across the shimmering water before turning back to him. "Now I think saying yes was the best decision I ever made." Adrian gently kissed her forehead. "You know something?" "What?" "I spent years believing that losing Claire meant I'd never experience love again." He smiled warmly. "I was wrong." Savannah rested her head against his shoulder. She looked into his eyes. "But now I know. It wasn't desperation that kept us together. It was respect, trust, patience, and eventually, love." At that moment, Harper called out from the end of the dock. "Come on, we're taking a family picture." Everyone gathered together. Savannah stood beside Adrian, her parents on one side, Harper on the other, while Rosa insisted on joining after everyone convinced her. The photographer counted down. 3, 2, 1. The camera captured more than smiling faces. It captured second chances, forgiveness,
Healing.
and the beautiful truth that sometimes the greatest love stories don't begin with perfect circumstances. They begin with impossible choices. And two people willing to choose each other again every single day.